Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're all doing well, and welcome to the showdown between the Vampire Coast and the Skaven here on the Haunted Vale. It is going to be Celestia facing off against Ikit Claw, and this is certainly a very good map for shooting. You have these two big hills right out of your spawn zone, and a pretty big open field on objectives 1 and 2. Now for the Vampire Coast battle line, it's going to be pretty combined arms. Front line here is going to be deckhand mobs, and Vampire Coast doesn't really have too many other choices, but your standard zombie pirate deckhand mob is going to hold up fine against clan rats, Skaven slaves, and they have a big HP pool of 12,000, which is pretty massive. When you look at like a Chaos Warrior, they have like a couple thousand more HP, but again, they're super glass cannon, 15 armor, 15 melee defense, so you know the HP is really their buffer. The whole front line is going to be zombos. In the secondary, we do have some bomber mobs, if I'm not mistaken. No, a carronade. Okay, so the carronade going to be there to shoot at the big rats, potentially counter snipe warp lightning cannons, play claw catapults, all that sort of good stuff. We do also have Shade Wraith Gunners, which are another glass cannon unit, but they're pretty useful against Skaven if they can be protected, because they do have the discouraged ability on firepower. So Skaven already have pretty god-awful leadership, so being able to nail them for -16 when you're shooting at them, let's say it's a blob of clan rats or an important fight on the flanks, whatever, applying -16 leadership on a stick is quite good. Second deck gunner back here, more zombies, and the leader is going to be Celestia. She's been pretty meta against the Skaven for some time. She is a big terror-causing monster that's extremely durable, but more importantly, she can summon these damn Knights Errant. Those damn Knights Errant, but when you summon the Ghosts of the Past, it's incredibly effective at shutting down warp lightning cannons, play claw catapults, globadiers, whatever, and they have 100% AP, so they can tear through these Skaven weapons teams very effectively. And on the far side, it is going to be Night Terrors, backed up by more zombies. For the Skaven army here of Iskander, it is going to be Gutter Runners. Man, we've been having a bit of a Skaven renaissance lately, but taking advantage of how speedy the little rats are to grab the objectives out of the gates. So we do have Gutter Runners, and a whole bunch of Night Runners over here on this side as well. So big skirmishing core, which isn't bad. You know, they do okay damage against light armor, and Coast is pretty lightly armored. But they're definitely going to need some big, heavy-hitting tools to deal with Celestia. You can't tar pit her with Rat Ogres. You know, Jezzails would be the Hochland Long Jezzails of Clan Scryer. Yes, of course, but getting those Jezzails out, the Arwars, would be very, very nice. Now, a little bit of a skirmish on this side. We do see some Scurvy Doggos coming out and attacking the Night Runners. And now there is going to be the first ambush of the game as Ikit Claw is the Lord for the Skaven. It looks like he has Funzing Rune and Howling Warp Gale. But the Night Terrors do lay a little bit of a beat down here on these rats and will be forcing them to rout. But we're going to see if these Scurvy Dogs start to crumble. It looks like they are going to be crumbling a little bit. And the Rat's leadership here is holding it very well. Ikit Claw providing the much needed encouragement to his people. As the fight over here on the side goes, I would say very, very well for the Skaven. We see crumbling Scurvy Dogs. Morgul's are caught in a bad situation, eating a lot of firepower. And Grom Brindle responds with more zombies. Now, back in the epicenter of action, we do see Celestia over here. It looked like there was maybe a Tide Call cast that missed. I'm not sure. Might have gone down these clan rats here. But the deck gunners up on the hill are shooting quite happily. Here you can see ripping some cost-effective shots into the Gutter Runners. But there is going to be the Brass Orb being cast by the Skaven Lord. So Ikit Claw casting that from... No, Storm Demon. Oh, you almost never see that. I thought that was going to be the other one. But yeah, the leadership debuffing here is quite big, right? Breaks the leadership of the Gutter Runners before they can get in. And they might actually just straight up run off the battlefield. So yeah, leadership is pretty good against Skaven. Now, old Vampire Coast moving up with zombie pirate deckhand mobs, like I said earlier, and calling in Sirens. So Sirens aren't quite as durable as they used to be. Their Fizz Res is only 55%. I wish it was like that in Tabletop. Units in Tabletop, by the way, if they have the Ethereal trait, you straight up just cannot do damage to them unless you have magic. It's pretty insane. Like, if you're not tuned to have a little bit of magic in your list, the Green Knight can just come in and give you an absolute punishment, which is happened to me a couple times. Damn Knights Errant moving in, though, running over the Skaven Slave Slingers and preparing, I would imagine, to surge in and act as a bit of a roadblock here. Over on Objective 1, we do see the Vampire Coast shooting, performing very, very well. Both deck gunners shooting pretty consistently, although there's a nice response here by Iskander. He is going to be dropping a fat, juicy Cleansing Rune right here. So Cleansing Rune going to be taking down the Night Terrors. And the zombies, not killing them, of course, but doing some respectable damage. And my god, look at the duration on that. That is forever. It might actually lead to their death. We'll have to see. On the side point, though, deckhand mobs are being pulled apart by some of the Gutter Runners, but Sirens are a little bit quicker, and they do have good capture weight. I think Vampire Coast should always bring at least one Siren, not because they're like the most brutal unit that you have to bring in every matchup, but just because they're fast capture weight that causes terror. And having, a fast unit that has full capture weight and causes terror, I think is very, very big in this game mode. So over here on the side, we do see the Night Terrors get worn down pretty low, but their passive healing in combat was able to keep them afloat. Objective owned by the Skaven here, and Objective 1 here is going to be owned by the Vampire Coast. Their deckhand mobs have been able to hold pretty firm here, and the shooting firepower of the Shade Wraith Gunners has been punishing off a lot of these units. And it looks like these Skaven kind of went with that old school style of play. Like if you've seen some of the recent tournaments we had, Charix has been playing Skaven in a way where he brings a lot of weapons teams and artillery and things like that. And he actually got to the semifinals of a tournament with Skaven with a lot of sweaty factions in, including Kislev and Tzeentch and the Empire and things like that. So I definitely think Skaven have some tools, but certainly still on the lower end of the spectrum with Vampire Coast. But they can take wins off good factions in the hands of good players for sure. But what the Skaven build here is missing is it has a lot of slingers, right? But it doesn't have a lot of like hard stopping power. No Warp Lightning Cannon, no Natty Boobo sharpshooters, all of which I think would be super helpful here. But Celestra might be able to just put this game on her big crab back here and carry this. We'll have to see. We do see Rat Ogres on their way in, but the Deck Gunners immediately zero in on them and are going to be ripping some fat shots. Cannon is also shooting at the Ogre, so the Vampire Coast combined shooting here really doing some nasty damage. As you can see, the powder is certainly quite functional here. Celestra causing terror routes. Objective 2 owned by the Skaven. Very nice play by a scanner to clean that off. But Objective 3 is under the clutches of the Vampire Coast. The Precious has gotten it. Cyrene's just going to be camping that one, and without magic damage and the fact that they cause terror, most of these lower tier Skaven units probably will struggle to deal with those Cyrenes. And now the Cyrenes rotate over the middle here for old Grombrindle, and they are going to be grabbing Objective 2. So even when Grombrindle's not playing Dwarves, he's finding a way to battle the Skaven. Classic stuff. Tide Call going down in the Skaven Slaves there. Nice little catch. As Celestra does get hit by a Flensing Rune, and the attrition is starting to wear into her a little bit. But Flensing Rune, of course, is a very nice damage spell. Rats attempting to make their way over here to the side, but Scurvy Dogs are a very good answer against them. The Scurvy Dogs do saturate in and get on top of the Wolf Rats, negative 34. And they're going to rout instantly. Deck Hunters are one of the biggest glass cannon units in the game. If they get caught by for even a second by something, they really pay the price. Grombrindle trying to intercept these ones. Will Iskander be able to find his way through? Wolf Rats do get in, but their leadership, like I said, is terrible. And look at how much work the Shade Wraith Gunners are putting in this game. Super nice. Now on this side, we do see the next big call-in for Vampire Coast, which is going to be Lampreys, and man, oh man, that's going to be a hard one to kill. For the Rats, they're mostly calling in chaff units. A little bit of housekeeping needs to be done for sure. A couple idle units back here that need to be unsummoning. With Skaven, it's very important that you unsummon your beat up units and retreat them so they can lick their wounds. Little rat paws. But Shade Wraiths, yep, nuking into the blob here. Icket Claw is still alive though, which is good. If he had died somehow, that would have been pretty catastrophic. With all the leadership discouraging effects in Undead, they all cause fear, right? So that's going to be lowering leadership by a couple points. So you got to be careful against Undead, especially as Skaven if you lose your Lord. I've seen many games back in Warhammer 2 land battles and Dom in Warhammer 3 where Skaven are winning, but they lose their Lord, and then suddenly they're against like an Undead faction or like Chaos faction, and everything starts to go kind of south. It looks like Wolf Rats here are getting shelled by the cannons and the Shade Wraith Gunners. Are they going to switch over? Some doggos have been called in by the Vampire Coast to intercept them, and they should be able to. As far as Objective 3 goes, it is being contested a little bit, but the instant terror routes from the Cyrenes doing work in tandem with the Lamprey's Revenge. So Lamprey's Revenge, very nice anchor piece. And this map is pretty big, but you can still rotate between these two objectives pretty functionally with a unit that has almost 50 movement speed. And Cyrenes have plus 50 movement speed, right? No, they're 48, so not quite as fast as I thought. They're close. Pretty darn quick. Another Cyrene unit coming in. Cool to see them being used here. Very spooky. This is the Halloween edition. But the Rats are looking pretty cleaned up for now. I don't see too much else they can do, honestly. They're coming into the waves and waves of just tattered units, and the Shade Wraith Gunners are going to be switching on to Icket Claw now, so he's going to be getting popped. And the Rats are just out of tools. They kind of went with this very wide build that didn't have much killing power. They needed some weapon teams, whether it be the Teethbreakers to stealth up and kill Celestra. Natty Boobo Sharpshooters would have been MLG because they could have stealthed and they would have been able to kill the Deck Gunners. The fact that he went all in on those, just swarming tactics. And I do like the Night Runner Slingers. I think against Vampire Coast Slingers and Gutter Runners are very good because they kill the Deckhand mobs pretty effectively, but I think you need a little bit more big stopping power, just a little bit. So AK Claw getting a Flensing Rune down here on the side point. It is being contested. The Ixchus Triads do move in. And as good as they are against big targets, there still are Cyrenes here. Probably going to get them terror routed. Their leadership is at 70 actually, so they haven't taken too much damage yet. And the Vampire Coast does arrive with some Bomber mobs, so the Bomber mobs are trying their best to get onto the Ixchus Triads. One really solid Bomber salvo would do huge work. And there it goes. Nice one right there. And that's going to lead them to getting terror routed in just a moment. Taking that much shock damage and your leadership tanking like that, most likely going to be terror routed. Over on Objective 1, the Rats have a couple like Slinger units trying their best. Celestro able to defeat Icket and push him back. He lost his combat resolution. Couple Scurvy Dogs coming over here after the dreaded Stormvermin and Halberds. All right, that's kind of a cool one. And will they get the terror route? These Ixchus Triads are holding on like champs. I actually expected them to route there to these terror-causing units, but they're hanging in there. Scurvy Dogs do find a catch here on the Wolf Rats, and, that's the thing. Skaven do have, Hound units, but their Hound units are not quite as good and stalwart as the Hounds of other factions. They're still little Skaven Rats, and, they try their best. But here we do see the Ixchus Triads about to be broken. The healing on the Lamprey's Revenge, mitigating a lot of the small arms damage that's coming in. They haven't lost any models yet, which is brutal, and Deck Gunner, Hand Gunners have arrived. Skaven doing a little bit of housekeeping. We see Skaven Slave Slingers and more Skaven Slaves coming up. There's no way they're going to bunker bust the middle. The only thing is with Skaven, maybe the coast runs out of ammo here. Their two Deck Gunners are about to run out of ammunition, so there could be a little bit of a falter in the Vampire Coast efficiency, but overall, it seems like they've traded pretty darn well. And we got Stormvermin Halberds here being attacked by Sirens. And even though the Sirens are on death's bed, they still pack a really good armor-piercing punch at 30 weapon strength. And yeah, Stormvermin Halberds are pretty fickle as it pertains to being an elite unit. But over here, Ikit Claw going to be using unlimited power to get his little rat claws a little bit more power there. On the side, we do see some Gutter Runners finally cashing the Deck Gunners here, and there is going to be an unsummon of the Shade Wraith Gunners, so they're going to be sent back to the pits while the Sirens maneuver across, and it shouldn't have too many issues roadblocking much of this army. Vampire Coast has got a nice stranglehold on a couple points here. Stormvermin Halberds, though, for the little rats are trading pretty damn well. We do see them shanking into the Lamprey's Revenge, but the Bomber support up in the sky, really nice combo using the Deck Gunner Handgunners, and the Bomber mobs back here able to DPS down those Stormvermin, and they're not going to be long for this world. In the meantime, Celostra does get nailed again by another Flensing Rune, but 9,000, 10,000 HP, whatever she has, is a lot. Certainly going to take a lot to get her down. 1,500 value, but that's to be expected. Against Skaven, you don't really accrue a lot of value on individual characters. It's typically split across your army, because most Skaven armies are very chaff-centric and very, very wide. While we see some Wolf Rats hustling in here, so the little Wolf Rat people going to be heading to Objective 3, while Depth Guard are being called in by Grombrindle. Normally a very big liability against Skaven because of how efficient their Gulliveteers and weapon teams can kill them. But here in the fourth quarter, when he's ahead and the Skaven are going to have to make desperate split pushes, I think it's going to feel pretty good. Animated Hulks being called out. Again, Animated Hulks die very quickly to even basic Slinger units, but I don't think that's going to be too much of an issue. We do see the Tide Call going down on the Rats here. Does some nice DPS as the Lamprey's Revenge is going to be anchoring down. We'll have no problems defeating a Clan Rat unit, though the Clan Rat Spears will trade pretty effectively considering the circumstances. That's going to be it. Iskander fighting very, very hard, but like I said, I gave it a little bit of a chance just to see if there would be some sort of a comeback here, but I think that's going to be it. We see the Vampire Coast cleaning up shop. Depth Guard going to be farming these Stormvermin like it's nobody's business, so that is a decisive victory for the Depth Guard over here. Objective 2 owned by Lampreys, and the Rats are in full retreat. Maybe they're going to get Celostra, so they do manage to get Celostra down, but it's, oh no, I think she actually, did she live? No, it looks like the fat lady did sing, but alas, it was a note of joy and happiness as the Vampire Coast game's victory. Cool to see them. Honestly, I think there's some meta explorations with the Skaven. Vampire Coast is something like they just almost never get played. They're like the Chaos Dwarves in tabletop, just like a unicorn, super hard to find, right? But yeah, Coast. I'm trying to think what they could do against the meta. Coast could maybe compete with Tzeentch, actually, although the Soul Grinders would be problematic. But you do have your cannons, so you go like double cannon, probably trade against those Soul Grinders pretty well. I think Coast could maybe contend with Tzeentch. Contending, all those Zangors are such an issue too. Shielded fast, just like causing havoc. I guess Morgul's can do okay into them. It's a tricky one. It would require a little bit of testing, but neither. The thing is, like, there's factions that are decent, but they just struggle into the existing meta. And the existing meta is the Empire. Empire typically will do very well against Vampire Coast and Skaven, in my opinions, especially with some of the new elements they got. Although, I don't know. Yeah. The land ships aren't really good against either of these factions, to be fair. Land ships have been limited in recent tournaments. Trying to think about applications. I had many good games in previous patches against Skaven, and I always felt like it was a pretty even one, if not maybe slightly Empire favored. Like, I'm talking 55-45, so maybe now it's like 60-40. Hawk and Long Rifles aren't really good against Skaven. Like, a lot of the new stuff isn't that good against Skaven, but I don't know if I would feel comfortable picking Skaven against Empire. They have a lot of good heavy cavalry and some decent terror with Boris Todbringer. Tricky stuff. Anyways, GG well played. Looking at the value here, 1900. We do have the Deck Gunners doing really good. I love the Deck Gunners. They were huge MVPs for routing off a lot of the Skaven. And for the old Rats, they just needed some weapons teams. Yeah, the build was very aggressive, trying to swarm the objectives using Slingers and Ninja Rats, which is a cool style of play. But they needed just literally one or two fat Giselles. Maybe the Harwar Warp Lightning Cannon would have probably been killed by a cannon, so not that. But I think a Natty Bubos at least would have been a very nice addition. All right, guys, take care of yourselves. See you around, and that is going to be it for today. Wow, big that 3,000 value on he tried to carry that game. All right, guys, see ya.